Hey everyone, thank you for joining us this morning for Good Morning ILA. We're so glad to see all of you. Today, I'm excited to have Megan Klein-Hewitt, who is the treasurer for ILA, as our special, no, not ALA, no, much smaller budget, much smaller organization. Megan is the treasurer for ILA and as such is the chair of the finance committee, I think. She's nodding in affirmation.
Yes, so. You got
it. So if you've been here for Good Morning ILA before, you know the drill. We just kind of run through some questions about about the guest and their committees and what they want to share with us today. So we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to have Megan take a minute to introduce herself and talk about the Finance Committee.
Sure. So like Amanda said, I'm Megan Klein-Hewitt. I am the Adult Services Manager at Ames Public Library, which is the day job. And then I serve as ILA's treasurer and chair of the Finance Committee. That pretty much consists of helping oversee ILA's finances. I think a lot of people get nervous or scared about finance committee treasurer. You're thinking, do I have to deal with checks? Do I have to go to the bank? Am I going to be fully responsible if the association goes bankrupt? And no, none of those things are true. We're really serving in an advisory role to the ILA board. And I, as the treasurer, work really closely with DMS, the management group that helps us run ILA. And so they do all the financial stuff. They do all the hard work. And as treasurer, I really just go through and approve transactions on a monthly basis, and then have conversations with the folks at the management team to make sure that we're having the conversations as an association and as a finance committee that we need to be having to keep things chugging along and hopefully keep us in the black most of the time.
That's a good goal for all of us, I think, right?
Right. Just like nobody wants to be in the red at home, the association doesn't want to be in the red either.
No. Did you bring a preferred work beverage to share with the group?
I'm being boring and drinking water right now. So I had coffee though before. So the power went out of my house this morning, right as I was trying to get ready to go to work. So things were a little bit chaotic this morning.
But as long as you got your coffee.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I just joined.
Okay, great. We're having Megan talk about the Finance Committee. You might have missed that first part of their introduction. So Megan, why don't you tell us why you joined Finance Committee?
Sure. So I moved to Iowa from Nebraska in 2018, and I had served as treasurer of Nebraska Library Association, which was a much bigger job than Iowa Library Association treasurer was. At the time, we didn't have a management association, so I was taking checks to the bank and running the entire association's finances in Excel spreadsheets. And so when I came to Iowa and was looking to get involved in ILA, it was an easy sort of in. I knew Jen, who was the treasurer at the time as well, because I worked as a sub in Des Moines when I originally moved to the state. So that was an easy offer to make, that I had served as a treasurer before. I was also on the PLA Budget and Finance Committee for a term. So I had experience, but I also think it's important to note that you don't have to have experience to do this work, particularly to be on Finance Committee. I think, again, a lot of people get nervous. They're like, oh, I don't really know how that stuff works. And like, I had zero experience before I became the treasurer of NLA. They probably should not have let me be the treasurer of NLA at the time. But it was all fine. And I think if you are capable of running a household budget or like a library's budget, you can certainly do this work.
That's a good point. So is there anything special that you would like to promote about Finance Committee or anything that we're looking for from membership?
We're always hopeful that folks will volunteer to be on finance committee. I think we did a call out in Catalyst, and so we're actually full up on members, but it's the first time in maybe since I've been on finance committee, which is 3 or 4 years, that we've been full on members. So I think my ask would be when the call comes out around next year, if you're at all interested, don't let those potential fears or hesitations stop you from volunteering. It really is an easy lift. I mean, we meet 4 times a year for about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how much we have to talk about. And it's a really great way to get involved in the association and understand, why it's so important to be a member and why your dues are so important and what your dues go toward. Particularly our bigger expenses like lobbying, to help us really have a voice in the state. I think those are the things that people kind of can forget about sometimes. And those are the things that are really important things that ILA is funding.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I was less aware of the lobbying work of ILA until I started getting involved in the association. Like, I think I always saw the, the lobby from home kind of stuff, but I didn't realize that we paid people to do that for us more consistently. And yeah, so that was something I was impressed by, I guess, at that point. But yeah, I really appreciate Craig and Amy and all that they do, and bless them for doing that work that I'm not sure that I could do.
Absolutely. The work that they do is so important. And, it's not cheap, which is right, because it's super important work and it's incredibly hard work. And all of the work that they're doing, all of our work towards intellectual freedom, that stuff is impossible if we don't have the funds to pay people to do that work, or to put our money where our values are as an organization.
Yeah. Well, does anyone have any questions for Megan? You can put them in the chat. You can unmute, whatever you like. I'm going to drop in the chat the ILA volunteer form, though, in case you are interested in volunteering for one of the many committees or subdivisions or things in ILA.
Yeah, so what typically goes on in meetings? So I receive the financial statements from DMS for every quarter. So I send those out ahead of the meeting so that folks on the committee have a chance to look at those documents prior to when we meet, in case they have any questions or things just don't make sense to them. And then at the meeting, we go through the quarter's financial documents generally pretty quickly. And then just have a general overview of this is where the association is standing right now financially. So we just met 2 weeks ago, and the association we're running a little short right now, but that's not unexpected. Conference is the big money maker for the association. So it's super important to register and go to conference if you haven't already. And so we are sort of waiting to see how conference turns out to determine how the rest of the financial year is going to go. So we talked about that. We frequently have conversations about additional revenue streams we could explore as an association. And we're always trying to encourage other committees and subdivisions to consider finding additional ways to make money that could benefit the association. But as librarians, we tend to want to offer things for free or for as little expense as possible. So that can be a little tough sometimes. And then we discuss any other points that need to be talked about. So for example, one of the things we've talked about this year is our auditing process. So we audit the association's finances annually, and we typically do an internal audit. So one of the things we discussed was how often do we need to do an external audit versus an internal audit? Are those internal audits serving us well enough? Are our checks and balances with the way that we work with DMS working for us? And they are, and we kind of have agreed that an internal audit is pretty sufficient for our purposes. And that is one of the things that finance committee members can volunteer to work on, is the internal audit that we do annually. So, which is coming up here at the end of the year, beginning of next year.
Well, and I think one point that I kind of came to my mind when you were talking about revenue streams is annual conference is coming up, and that is an important revenue stream for the association. So if you're on
Very
the fence,
important.
if you're on the fence about attending conference, we would encourage you to do so. It's going to be in Coralville this year. And you've got about almost a whole month to register with early bird pricing still. So you can, register with early bird pricing, or be even nicer to the association and their finances and register late.
The more people, the merrier there.
Yes,
Just
absolutely.
register and attend. That's the important part.
Yeah. Oh, and trivia is back this year, which I was super excited about. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for that.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some really good stuff going on at conference this year.
Any other questions for Megan about finance committee or ILA financial matters? No? Okay. Sounds good. Well, thanks everyone for coming, and we'll start our Q&A here in just a moment.